Hey, welcome to the live Week 4 Q&A. Sit-start questions are highly encouraged here. It is our Sunday morning version of the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast, which never becomes a podcast. And I am here, Derek VanRiper, in place of Michael Beller, Brandon Funston in his usual place, here to offer as much help as we possibly can over the course of the next half hour. How's it going for you this morning, Brandon?
I'm doing good. I got my lineups set. I think I got a handle on, who's in and who's out and who's a game time decision. So, ready to roll.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing pretty well. I'm just browsing through the news. It looks like we got some good news later today for George Kittle. He's on track to play. It's a late afternoon kick, so we won't have the official word until 90 minutes before that game starts. But if you were sweating Kittle, he is on track to play. That was a report from ESPN's Adam Schefter, so that's good news. Eli Mitchell, not expected to play in that game, so it looks like we're going to get another bigger week of work for Trey Sermon.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is this is going to be his opportunity. I was curious to see if Elijah Mitchell was back, how much there would be a platoon role between the two of them. I think Trey Sermon, the jury's still out. He hasn't really given us a whole lot. This is his opportunity. Seahawks defense has been leaky all around, and you would think he's going to get the majority of touches, and he might, with a good showing, maybe play his way into some meaningful mix with Elijah Mitchell when he comes back.
Yeah, I could definitely see it playing out that way. Good news if you have Dalvin Cook on your roster, he's back. He was on track all week, really upped his activity. It looked like things were pretty good, but he's according to him, he's going to be his full self. That was something he said to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero earlier today, so you can be excited about that. Jonathan Taylor is good to go. DeAndre Swift is good to go. No Gronk, of course, as we learned at the end of the week due to the rib injury, so make sure he's not in your lineups. We do have Jamison Crowder making his season debut for the Jets. It's such a woeful offense that I'm not sure there's anyone who's significant fantasy-wise who's going to lose because of Crowder, but maybe this gives them just a little bit of a lift that they actually need in a very desperate way.
Yeah, he's a crafty slot guy, and maybe that's going to help Zach Wilson out. It's something that a guy that can get separation underneath in the shorter areas. Obviously, he's been under duress a lot, and I kind of like this matchup. I think for them to get out of their doldrums a little bit offensively, they're averaging 6.7 points per game, which is terrible. Tennessee, it seems like the kind of defense where they might be like, string a few touchdowns together here in this one. So this is their opportunity, and hopefully Jamison Crowder can help make Zach Wilson kind of click a little bit.
Got one question here from FVSAD. What is the status of Melvin Gordon? It looks like he's supposed to go, barring pregame setbacks. That also, according to Adam Schefter of ESPN. So if you're on the fence with Gordon, more likely than not, he is going to play based on that report. So actual lineup questions rolling in already. Let's start with Casey's question. Would you start Swift or Jonathan Taylor in a non-PPR league? Miami bad against the run, but I'm worried about Taylor behind that Colts offensive line.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor, the deal here is the Colts need to have a game where they can be competitive for Jonathan Taylor to get volume, and I think this is one of them. Miami's got their own issues with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Taylor was 10 for 64 last week. It's a good numbers. He just didn't get to the volume, and I think he'll have a better opportunity to do that this week. I'm going to give Taylor the slight lean. I do like DeAndre Swift as well, but I'm going to give Taylor the slight lean here.
Yeah, this is an interesting script for Swift in that because the game might actually be closer against the Bears, it might not be as
Right.
good as it would be most weeks when the Lions are playing catch-up and he's on the field for all those passing situations, but this is a pretty close call. I think this could be a good week for Taylor. Opportunities have been there. I mean, there were a couple opportunities against the Rams. They just couldn't punch it in close, too, and he was getting all the work around the goal line on those first couple drives in that game a couple weeks ago. Jared's got a question in a PPR league. Miles Sanders or CEH?
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with Miles Sanders. I haven't ranked one spot ahead of CEH, and that's in a half PPR. I actually think in a full PPR, this might actually favor Miles Sanders a little bit more. I mean, CEH seems like a natural to be involved more in that passing game for the Chiefs, but he just hasn't been. he gets a little bit of love there, but he hasn't been a meaningful part of that passing attack. So in a full PPR, I actually like Miles Sanders a little bit more. Yes, coming off of a 2-carry game last week, I do think he's in for more meaningful touches this week.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough toss-up, but I think I would err very, very much, very closely on the Miles Sanders side. I think it's a tough call. Rolando's got a question in a full PPR league. Bench one receiver out of Myers, Fuller, and Brandon Ayuk.
We saw Jacoby Myers got massively targeted last week, and I think this is an opportunity against Tampa where that could be the case once again, especially with James White out. Brandon Ayuk almost had the same amount of snaps as Deebo Samuel last week. He had 60 snaps. He's back into a full-time role, so I want him in there against this Seattle defense. Will Fuller, I just mentioned Miami with Jacoby Brissett. That offense is a little bit shaky. I'm sitting Will Fuller.
I think that makes sense. Second part of the question there, at running back, play Drake or Jamal Williams. The usage of Kenyon Drake has been pretty
Weird.
underwhelming, so I'm kind of on the Williams side of that one.
I kind of am too. I can see where this could be an okay Drake game in the passing game if they're putting up the points I expect the Vegas and Chargers, to do. But I think as far as just like safe, what kind of role you're going to get. And you mentioned, this game with Chicago with Justin Fields, we now know being the starter. This could be a war of attrition kind of slog where it just is a whole lot of the running backs on both sides.
Yeah, it absolutely could be. A DFS question here from Jonathan. Is Derrick Henry worth the $10,200 on FanDuel? Jets are a good matchup, but that's a high markup. I mean, I've had trouble feeling like I had enough good value plays on DraftKings to get Henry in there. So my general lean is no. Like I think I want a more mid-pack sort of build because there are so many high-scoring games on the slate this week. There's always that possibility that the Jets sell it to stop the run, keep Henry somewhat in check, and force the Titans to beat them through the air. That's lingering in there as well. I just felt like there was enough value throughout the second tier, both at running back and wide receiver, where I wanted to build my lineups that way. So yeah. I would say no, even though it's not necessarily me betting against Derrick Henry rolling over the Jets, if that makes any sense.
Right. Sometimes, and he'll be the chalk play. A lot of people will probably be willing to pay up on that, just on the narrative that, this is going to be a 35 to 40 carry game with Julio and A.J. Brown out, and it's the Jets. And it could be, but I think sometimes we just kind of we just push a narrative and it gets a little bit hyperbolic, It maybe won't be a 35 carry game. It might just be your standard 100-yard, 25 carry Henry kind of game, and that's good enough, So you got to temper the enthusiasm and expectations just a little bit on that.
Yeah, the Jets just don't do anything well, as our friend Andrew DeWitt said earlier this week on the Best on the Board podcast. A wide receiver question here from Adam. Woods, Patrick, or Corey Davis this week?
I actually like all these guys in sense of looking better or worse than usual this week. I'm still not ready to, kick Robert Woods down into this wide receiver range where Tim Patrick and Corey Davis are. I mean, he's just been too good for so long, and eventually things are going to swing a little bit more in his way and a little less in Cooper Kupp's way. It can't just be Cooper Kupp 13, 14 targets every week and no one's stopping this guy. I mean, it's worked so far. But Robert Woods, this is a narrow tree to people to throw to. So far it's basically been Kupp, but it should just ultimately expand out and even out a little bit because these guys are both great. And so I'm going to go Robert Woods.
Yeah, I like Woods a little bit more game script there, more favorable than what Patrick and Corey Davis have in their respective matchups as well. Jason also has a wide receiver question. Deontay Johnson or Robbie Anderson? It's been a very quiet start to the season for Anderson, but the good news on Deontay Johnson, Brandon, didn't even have an injury designation coming into this week's matchup against the Packers.
Yeah, you'll probably have one coming out, but of the matchup. It kind of seems to be par for the course with him. But healthy, I'm playing him. He's been Roethlisberger's favorite target when he has been healthy. Pittsburgh's got a broken offense right now, and Ben, it was indicative of the 19 targets to Najee Harris. Ben's living in that short range area, but that's not to the detriment of Deontay Johnson, who can also live in there as well. So I think, we don't have to worry about targets for Deontay Johnson. That's definitely a concern for Robbie Anderson right now, where we're kind of needing him to make a big play.
Targets might be 3 yards away from the line of scrimmage, but he should get plenty
right.
of them given the needs in that Steelers offense. Dame wants to know, who should I start, Brady or Justin Herbert? This is a horrible good problem to have pretty much every week.
Yeah, look at it. This is another one of those. Oh, we're pushing this narrative that Tom Brady, because he's playing his old team, is just going to come up with like 4 or 5 touchdown passes and just be, magic. Look at the matchup. The matchup favors Justin Herbert, and really the way they've been playing, Justin Herbert's, been like just week in and week out consistent, putting up a lot of volume, and I like the matchup against the Raiders. I would want to play my quarterback if all things are equal. If it's the Raiders or versus the Patriots, give me the guy versus the Raiders.
Right, you've got the back and forth shootout on Monday night, or you've got the Brady just keeps his foot on the gas and tries to embarrass the Patriots on Sunday night. I think part of the problem for Tampa Bay right now is that they've been so pass dependent. They're going to want to run the ball a little bit at some point, try to get that aspect of their offense back on track, and this might be a week where they can do that a bit in the second half. So I think Herbert is the way to go, but again, a really nice problem to have if you're in a position like that. Good luck with that one, Dame. John wants to know, full PPR flex, Henderson, Damian Harris, or Tim Patrick?
It's close. Darrell Henderson sounds like he's good to go. I'm gonna go with Henderson. I think I have him slightly ahead of Damian Harris and Tim Patrick as well. I mean, Patrick could end up being good, but I want the guy that's going to, they showed that they wanted to lean on Darrell Henderson early in the year, and then he got hurt. But if he's cleared, I'm feeling best about him.
This is a tough matchup for Damian Harris this week because the biggest issue for Tampa's defense has been in the secondary, and they've been fine up front. They can dominate the line of scrimmage, stuff the run, and force Mac Jones in that passing game to try and break them down that way. So I think I'm with you on Henderson over Patrick in that situation. Let's go to a question from Hannah. Who should I start as my wide receiver 2.5 PPR league? Brandon Cooks at Buffalo, Antonio Brown at New England, or Jacoby Myers on the other side of that matchup against the Bucs?
That's a decent one, but I just kind of have been telling myself in the last couple of weeks that I need to stop just poo-pooing Brandon Cooks in these matchups. Like, oh, it's Houston. He's got a terrible quarterback. He's getting volume against everybody, and I think right now you have to go with the guy who's the very clear number one in his offense, and Brandon Cooks, and the best, the most dynamic talent of the group as well at this point. Antonio Brown, obviously in his heyday, but he's been out with COVID, and it's a tough matchup against New England.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's going to be chasing all day based on the spread in that game, so it could be an easy 10-target week for Brandon Cooks as a result. So I think that definitely steers me that way if you're looking at a problem like that. Bobby Trees wants to know, Corey Davis, OBJ, Allen Robinson, and Cortland Sutton, how do you rank these guys for ceiling and floor? My snap reaction on ceiling is Beckham, Sutton, Robinson, Davis. The floor seems like the harder ranking to put together.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would. Yeah. You almost could say the ceiling for Robinson's the highest if Justin Fields is, if we're unlocking his arm talent with deep balls, because people were kind of into that idea, the idea that Justin Fields has a strong arm, throws a good deep ball. Allen Robinson's good at making contested catches in vertical sense. So, yeah, I think floor is also like, I think Allen Robinson probably has the lowest floor too, though. I mean, he's like, we saw it last week. It's like that's the floor right there, and it's terrible. And Corey Davis is probably second, because if things go south with Zach Wilson like they have multiple weeks in a row, then that's going to take him down. So those two are on the bottom for that. For me, the ceiling probably goes to Cortland Sutton, because Teddy Bridgewater's throwing deep balls. And he's got the best potential to make multiple big plays in a game, and I think OBJ would be second there. So, but if I'm just like pick two, for me, it's definitely OBJ and Cortland Sutton on this one.
Yeah, definitely enough ceiling and floor to go that route if you're choosing between those four options. Let's go to this question from Alex in a half PPR league. Are you trusting Antonio Gibson, or should you pivot to someone like Kareem Hunt or Antonio Brown? And for what it's worth, Gibson is officially active for today's game against Atlanta.
Yeah, I think that's enough for me going against Atlanta that I want Antonio Gibson. Kareem Hunt would be close. I would put him second on this list, but I know he had a great week last week, and he doesn't have a terrible matchup. I'm kind of interested in that Cleveland-Minnesota game, because they're kind of two teams cut from the same cloth, and that they want to run the ball with their running backs a lot and kind of play game manager, conservative offense. But give me Antonio Gibson, just because I think the volume's going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I love Gibson this week. Atlanta is putrid. I think this is an opportunity for Gibson to have one of those 20-plus point smash games given this matchup. Adam wants to know, Sermon Ayuk or Jalen Waddle in a half PPR league.
I'm putting a lot of my eggs in the Brandon Ayuk basket this week. You got in the end zone last week, talked about the 60 snaps. I talk about last week, Kirk Cousins could have completed passes all day long as much as you want to against the Seattle secondary. They play, they play to not get beat deep. In San Francisco, they don't mind hitting, those under routes all day long and nickel and diamond teams with Ayuk and Debo. So I like both of the 49ers receivers, and I'm taking Ayuk in this one.
Skinnier version of the question we got just a few minutes ago. OBJ versus Robinson if you only have the two to choose from in a half PPR league.
Yeah, we talked about the floor and the ceiling. I think, the winner here is OBJ. I had the nice 9 targets last week. It's a decent matchup against Minnesota. I have no problem rolling out OBJ and would have less fear in doing so than throwing out Allen Robinson, just not knowing what Matt Nagy's got in store for us offensive scheme-wise today. But hopefully it's better for Bears fans, and there's some RPO and some things that maybe work to Fields' talents better. But I think with Allen Robinson, we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode with that instead of just trusting that will happen.
Got one here from BCM. Jamal Williams or Devontae Smith in a half PPR league for the flex spot.
This is the classic floor ceiling. Like, if you want to go ceiling, you play Devonta Smith. If you just feel like you're not liking the way your projections look for your team, then you throw Devonta Smith in there because I think he gives you more upside. But I'm probably playing Jamal Williams and playing it a little bit safer.
Yeah, Smith averaging 7 targets per game so far. Eagles, I think, a touchdown underdog today, so should be plenty of opportunities for him. But Williams, you look at and say, 10 or 12 touches seems almost certain. So if he turns that into 50 yards and finds the end zone, it's tough to beat that, even in a half PPR league. So it is kind of a classic floor versus ceiling sort of question. Let's see. We got FVSAD. Does Antonio Brown have any value with Gronk out? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think I look at that offense when one of those core 4 guys are missing, everybody in the rest of the group gets a little bump, and then maybe we see Cameron Brate show up in the red zone. Like, that's kind of the adjustment that I expect the Bucs to make anytime Gronk is out. And then if one of the receivers is out, Tyler Johnson probably becomes the 4th guy that emerges to maybe be a pest and maybe be an option for tournaments and GPPs and desperation plays in season-long leagues.
Yeah, we've already kind of seen the context clues of that, what you just mentioned, play out. So I was going to just add on, you're right, Cameron Brate's maybe the pivot for a Gronk owner or just someone who needs a tight end, a deeper league. Cameron Brate's not a bad plug and play.
Let's go to this one from Jeffrey. OBJ or Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a half PPR league?
This is close. I'm going to go Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Again, I'm going to say volume, but, you're probably talking 15 to 20 touches for Helaire. Last week, OBJ, 9 targets, 5 catches. So he has, if he gets 5-6 catches, it's just you got to do a lot more with them than a guy that's getting 15 or 20 touches.
2 from the late afternoon window, Juju Smith-Schuster or Melvin Gordon in a non-PPR situation. This feels like a really hard question.
It is. I think I'm going to lean Melvin Gordon for touchdown upside. The Pittsburgh offense is sort of broken. I mean, Juju's all about a PPR play. I mean, because right now he is 6 for 54 is sort of the poster child for that, and not a touchdown. So, yeah, I know Melvin Gordon's not 100%, but he's playing. He's cleared. So give me Melvin Gordon.
Got a question here from Kelvin. 2 Eagles included, Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, or Chase Edmonds for the flex this week. I don't like what Arizona's been doing with Edmonds and James Conner. I find it difficult to talk myself into playing either of them in really any circumstances. So for me, it's really Sanders versus Smith. What would you do here?
Yeah, give me the running back. I'll take Miles Sanders. And I agree. I mean, Edmonds looked like the better play between him and Connor, and then Connor finally got the goal line carries last week and gashed him in. So, it's a little bit tougher. But, yeah, I think Miles Sanders to me is just the safest with also the highest ceiling. So, give me Miles Sanders.
Running back question here from Tom. David Montgomery or Antonio Gibson in a half PPR league. Will Gibson's injuries limit his upside and make Montgomery a safer play?
I don't think anybody on Chicago is a safe play right now. This is going back to the rookie starter who the offense was absolutely atrocious last week. So to play Montgomery, I know it's a nice matchup, but it's more about the offense and the Bears right now. So for me, I will take Antonio Gibson again. I know you love the matchup for Antonio Gibson against Atlanta. Two running backs here with actually pretty good matchups.
Yeah, I actually like them both quite a bit. So this would fall into a good problem to have for this week at least. Might not be a good problem to have in future weeks. DJ has got a couple questions here. Rondell Moore or Will Fuller is the first one, and then Mike Davis or Trey Sermon is the second one.
I'm just not Team Fuller. I'm wait until he actually does something here in Miami. New team hasn't really shown up. Different quarterback. Don't love the marriage of the quarterback and the wide receiver. So give me Rondell Moore just on the chance that he went away last week, but they seemed like they were intent to design plays specifically for him. Maybe they'll get him more involved again this week. It was trending that way before this past week, and I will take Mike Davis. I don't trust Kyle Shanahan right now with Trey Sermon and his usage and how things are going to go there. So I want Mike Davis. And Washington's not been that tough of a defense so far this year, so I would not say it's a shutdown kind of moment here for Mike Davis.
Definitely has been a surprise for me. I thought that Washington defense was going to be pretty nasty, and they still could get there, but the first few weeks they have been very much a matchup you could lean into and come away pretty happy with it. Matt wants to know, PPR league in a flex spot, Darrell Henderson or Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean Darrell Henderson. And Sanders had a nice week. He has a nice matchup. This could be a second half, a lot of Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, though. If this thing plays out as, what is a 17.5 point favorite, like if they're up early like that, it could just be, let's just ride this thing out, milk the clock down the second half. So I like the upside of Henderson a little bit more.
I always find these questions to be the most difficult. They usually come from smaller leagues, like 8-team leagues or something, but you still got to make a call. The All-Star Gamer wants to know, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Terry McLaurin, Adam Thielen, pick two in a full PPR. Like, for me, it's the first two. Am I overlooking something with McLaurin and Thielen where I should be pushing one of those guys in?
Well, Hopkins isn't 100%. He was off last week, and now he pulls some Jalen Ramsey this week. So I think you can make a case for McLaurin versus Hopkins, but I think DeAndre Hopkins, if I'm drafting a team in reality, and my first wide receiver pick is, I would think long and hard about DeAndre Hopkins. I literally think he's one of the best receivers in the league, and if he's out there, I have a hard time sitting him. So I'm with you. I'll go Hopkins and Mike Williams here.
Yeah, one of the few players who can get the Jalen Ramsey matchup and still actually put up a good game. Like that's part of the appeal for me. Max wants to know, Jonnu, Knox, Schultz, or Jared Cook, trying to round out the lineup with a tight end.
I think I just want Jared Cook again for the potential for there to be 60+ points scored in that game, and I want the guy that's going to be a part of it. So give me Jared Cook.
Yeah, I think it comes down to Cook versus Schultz, and I'm worried that people might be overreacting a little bit to what Schultz did on Monday night against the Eagles. I mean, 6 for 80 and 2 touchdowns. Well, they did have 6 targets back in week 1, though, against the Bucs. That game obviously was back and forth in a shootout, too. But this is one of those offenses where someone has to lose each week, and I think more often than not, it's going to be Schultz, even though he's going to have plenty of weeks where he's a top 10 tight end.
Right, and he's getting almost even split snaps with Blake Jarwin, so it's not like this couldn't swing Blake Jarwin's week, one of these weeks. So it's working out well for him so far, but I don't think he's far from a guarantee still at this point.
Here's one from Grant: Emmanuel Sanders versus Robert Woods in a PPR league for the flex spot.
Yeah, I talked about Robert Woods before. I think it's going to come around for him. He's got too good of a track record. I'm still leaning Robert Woods and still kind of, considering him with a top 20 wide receiver lens still. I'm not ready to discount him into the Emmanuel Sanders world just yet.
Looks like the Darrell Henderson show continues. Matthew wants to know, Henderson or Mike Davis in a non-PPR league.
Non-PPR, give me Henderson still. I'm not convinced that they don't love, that they're going to go away from Cordero Patterson at the goal line. So in a non-PPR, I maybe like Darrell Henderson's TD upside a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's what it was going to come down to for me as well. More likely to find the end zone is Darrell Henderson at this point. Quicker dribbles, choose 3 out of these guys, please. I'm stuck. Cooper Debo, Mike Evans, and Allen Robinson. It's really just a sit one out of those 4.
Yeah, I think you sit Allen Robinson right now. He's, it's a TBD on this offense with Justin Fields. So bad last week that you have to pump the brakes on him for the moment and just make sure that things are smoothening out for this Bears offense.
And you could just be happy that Allen Robinson gets back on track if you're wrong, because the 3 guys you're playing are all great players too.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, that's a pretty nice stable of wide receivers there.
Yeah, Robinson gets back on track. Maybe you can trade him, get an upgrade somewhere else, do a 2-for-1, gives you some flexibility a bit later on. Philip wants to know, for flex in a full PPR, Tim Patrick, Robbie Anderson, or Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who should be pretty heavily involved. I mean, we saw it last week with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones out. Westbrook-Ikhine was really involved, and with a full game, even in a game where they're heavily favored, I'm expecting at least 6 targets for him, with room for a bit more than that.
Yeah, I think he's a viable play. Honestly, though, I'm going to lean Tim Patrick. He's had really good games, 2 of his 3 games so far. I think seems to have a pretty good rapport with Teddy Bridgewater. And as I mentioned, Bridgewater's throwing the ball downfield. He's among the leaders in passes of 20-plus yards. And that works for Tim Patrick as well as a good vertical threat. But the injuries there just really make it Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick kind of right now in that receiving core. And, Baltimore's been a bit leaky in the passing game. They've been worse against the pass than a lot of people expected them to be. So give me Tim Patrick here in this one. I'm happy I finally got a question where I could choose Tim Patrick because I do like him this week.
Yeah, I like him too. Really good on a per-target basis. Extremely efficient as a pass catcher. I think he hasn't been credited with a drop in more than a year, which is just remarkable. Stan wants to know, Darnell Mooney or Bryan Edwards at the flex in a half PPR league?
I guess I'm going Bryan Edwards here. Again, it's the narrative of the Bears offense. But I sneakily just kind of expect maybe Darnell Mooney's going to be okay this week. But I think the safer play here is to go Bryan Edwards, who seems to get his production in at the end of the games to make sure that he's okay for his fantasy owners. But it'd be nice to see him get some work going in the first and second quarters. But whatever, it all counts in the end.
Yeah, definitely a good deeper league sort of question there from Stan. Let's go to this question from DJ. Sit 1 out of Tim Patrick, Corey Davis, Tony Pollard, or Emmanuel Sanders in a half PPR league. Double flex. I love double flex leagues. Am I wrong for wanting to sit Pollard here, Brandon?
No, I was just going to say that. I think that's he was out this week. We don't know what his personal reasons were, but he's been out this week. Carolina's been one of the surprise good defenses this year, and as good as Pollard's been, he's getting like half the snaps of Ezekiel Elliott. He's not out there a ton. So I think considering I like the matchups of the other receivers here, I think I am sitting Pollard.
Let's go to Fende's got a rookie question here. We got Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle in a PPR league.
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow just the Jacoby Brissett's targeting Waddle a lot. I think I want to follow that volume. Smith is getting some volume as well, but Hurts is a little bit more volatile in the passing game. It seems like he's more safe when you're like playing the tight ends for Jalen Hurts than the wide receivers. So give me Waddle just because I love the double-digit targets that we saw last week.
Here's a question from Davey Samuel Thomas Smallman. Leonard Fournette or Javonte Williams, 2 names we have not seen on the stream so far.
No, and Gio's out. They're not trusting Ronald Jones in the passing game. I could kind of lean Leonard Fournette, but honestly, I'm going to go with Javonte Williams just because Melvin Gordon's a bit banged up. Maybe we see a little bit more of edge in the platoon split there with him and Gordon. I just, when has Tampa Bay's backfield been the right answer so far this year for anybody?
Yeah, it's been a lot of frustration here in the early weeks of the season. Yet another Corey Davis question. This one comes from Casey. Would you rather start Corey Davis against Tennessee in that revenge game or Waddle against the Colts in the Jacoby Brissett revenge game? And this is a full PPR setup for Casey.
Yeah, I think I have these guys so close that the full PPR is going to lean me to Jalen Waddle, just because, again, tons of volume. And, I think Corey Davis has a better touchdown upside. I like his matchup. I think there's a decent chance for him to score. But in a full PPR, I feel pretty good about Waddle, delivering something on your table there, maybe 5-6 catches at the minimum. So give me Waddle.
Yeah, and I guess Corey Davis would be the guy that just from a target share perspective stands to lose a little something with Jamison Crowder coming back to that Jets offense. Jeffrey wants to know at quarterback, Derek Carr or Dak Prescott, yet another good quarterback problem to have.
Yeah, it is. I have both of these guys as QB1 rankings this week, but I have Dak Prescott a little bit higher. I actually think Dak Prescott, he's been, he's kind of been in the 230 range passing yards the last couple games. I think we're going to see things open up a bit for this passing game. Carolina's been hard to run on too as well, but yeah, something tells me Dak's going to have a pretty big game this week.
We'll try to lightning round a few more. We'll go for like 5 more minutes tops. Let's go Z Gilbert, Sermon, or Montgomery in the flex for PPR. I think that's Montgomery, right?
Montgomery, yep. Give me Montgomery.
Kenny's got Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts.
I expect a big game from Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson here always for that. He's the number one rushing quarterback in the league. It's such a nice safety net.
I do like Jalen Hurts on DraftKings if you're jamming in a late lineup, though. I think the price is good. Game script is favorable. Should be an easy 20-point game for Hurts yet again. Jared in a PPR league, Deontay Johnson, OBJ, or Sutton. Oh, choosing one from that group's tough.
Yeah, I think in a full PPR, I'm going to go OBJ. It's interesting, but I just feel safest in a full PPR sense with OBJ.
It really seemed to look himself coming off the injury last week. Philip wants to know Sermon or Singletary as the flex in a half PPR league.
Slight lean Singletary. I think there's going to be him and Zach Moss split like 24 carries a week. 11, 12 carries. That could be 30. They could be splitting 30 carries this week if, the game goes the way we think it is. So give me Singletary by a nose.
How about this one? Sermon or Galladay in a half PPR league? I'm just going to keep clicking on Sermon questions until you play
right?
them.
You know what? Give me Kenny Galladay with no Darius Slayton, with no Sterling Shepard. They're playing guys like Colin Johnson and Kadarius Toney. They went out and signed Galladay, big money. This is a week that feels like, okay, we're going to really lean into him. So I'll take Galladay here.
Jeffrey wants to know, pick two in a PPR to Tim Patrick, Trey Sermon, or Zach Moss, and he's 0-3, needs to nail it this week.
Weirdly, I'm just way off of Trey Sermon, even though he's the man. I think I want to go Tim Patrick and Zach Moss. I could understand going Trey Sermon and Zach Moss. In fact, I will. I think the safer play here is to go Sermon and Moss.
Let's sit one out of this group. Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, Hopkins is in there too, and Emmanuel Sanders in a half PPR league.
Yeah, I'm going to say Emmanuel Sanders. Again, they may not have as much volume, and there's 4 viable receivers in that passing game, and it may not be Emmanuel Sanders' week. You always have to worry about that. So this is where I will play Allen Robinson.
Sven wants to know Chuba Hubbard or Deontay Johnson as a flex in a half PPR league. It's the first Chuba Hubbard question, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, I have him ranked like RB20. I think our colleague Jake has him at RB16. That's the kind of value that trumps Deontay Johnson here. So give me Hubbard.
Heineke or Fields? Hopefully this is a super flex situation or a very deep league. I got to think it's Heineke, right? The matchup is good. He runs a little bit. He's shown he's at least a competent NFL quarterback, and we need to see the Bears prove they're not in disarray anymore before getting excited about Justin Fields again.
Yeah, this is close for me. I actually have Heineke one spot ahead of Fields, but it is, there is just I don't love Heineke. He just feels a little bit safer at this moment than Justin Fields.
Got one more from Stan. Would you sit Hollywood for Kirk this week? So Marquise Brown versus Christian Kirk in a half PPR league.
I'm going to go Marquise Brown still. Look, you can't argue the volume he's been getting. He dropped a couple, but imagining those opportunities where he didn't drop them, he'd be very, very happy with Marquise Brown right now.
Alfonso digging deep here. Nyheim Hines, Michael Carter, or Jamal Williams in a half PPR league.
I'm Michael Carter having a mini breakout in this game against Tennessee, so I'm going to take Michael Carter. I think I have him ranked RB31, and maybe Jamal Williams is RB32. Is it right there? And Nyheim Hines is probably like RB34 for me. So this is the right group to be comparing, and contrasting to decide between for sure.
I feel like most Sislak right now. Cybertron wants to know Jamal Williams or Trey Sermon in a half PPR league.
I'll go Trey Sermon. Again, we don't know who's backing up Trey Sermon, but it's somebody who hasn't been on the team very long. So I'm going to go with the guy that has the institutional knowledge, which sounds funny, bestowing that upon the rookie, but that's the state of the 49ers backfield at the moment.
All right, we got one last question we're going to get to here from Nick in a PPR league. Colin Johnson, Chester Rogers, or Nick Westbrook Akina, and you can only choose one.
You talked up Nick Westbrook-Akina earlier. I don't disagree. I like him better than his teammate Chester Rogers. And Colin Johnson, it's okay, but it's New Orleans. And New Orleans has been a tough defense. So I'm not really expecting a whole lot from the Giants offense today. So give me Westbrook-Akina.
All right. Before we go, Brandon, what was your toughest call this week across all of your leagues? What did you kind of have to sweat about here as you were trying to make your final decisions for week 4?
My biggest issue, I think, across a couple teams, I can't remember who it was that I decided between, but it was Damian Harris, whether I played Damian Harris this week. He's not involved in the passing game. It's Tampa Bay is running into the mouth of guys like Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. He's coming off a bad week as it was, but he's still the guy there. So it's like, am I playing Damian Harris or am I playing like the Juju Smith-Schuster? There was a couple like that where I'm like, and I think I started him in one and sat him in another.
Well, I hope you and everybody out there makes the right call as the week 4 lineup decisions come down to the wire here in the next 20 minutes or so. And I hope everybody comes back around next Sunday, same time, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And hopefully, if you're not listening already, you'll check out the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Several episodes throughout the week. We do a quick look at the waiver wire. That goes up on Sunday nights. You got you and Jake tomorrow reacting to everything that happens today. A lot of great shows lined up throughout the week. So thanks for all the great questions this week. And be sure to check out the Athletic Fantasy Football Podcast. Good luck in week 4.